What's up, guys? Thomas Mott alongside Josh Davis. Welcome to night 2, day 2 of the NFL Draft. We have every single pick from rounds 2 and 3 as the Philadelphia Eagles have 2 second-round draft picks, no third-round draft picks, but we have a lot of intriguing players still on the board, Josh, from what was a very exciting night 1 of the NFL Draft, not just for Eagle fans. I think for a lot of teams, they were pretty pleased with the results that they got on the board in round 1.
You have to be. Absolutely. I mean, I'm still trying to fathom this entire day. You know, we've been texting back and forth. Everybody sees on Twitter the reactions, everything else. Quinyon Mitchell is at the podium in Philly right now talking to the media.
Yes,
so
he is.
It's like the excitement of, did that actually just happen? And it did. But then the beauty of, and you mentioned it immediately after the draft pick, but it's like you didn't have to give up draft capital to go make that happen. The fact that you get him at 22 and here tonight, I mean, let's run it back, baby. We got it 50 and 53. The reports are Howie Roseman's been calling a lot today, seeing about possibility of move up early in this second round. The question is, like, is that Cooper DeJean? Is it a double? I've seen some people throw out, do you double up on corner? Do you Kool-Aid McKinstry? Do you get an offensive lineman maybe? Or, like a lot of us have been saying, the poll that I put up, you know, Edgerrin Cooper is the big name there. You're probably going to have to move up a little bit if you want him. But is Howie Roseman trade up significantly to get his linebacker? The question is, who's he targeting?
It's going to be fascinating. There are a couple linebackers technically on the board. Edgerrin Cooper, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is out there as well. One from, I mean, there's a bunch out there. There's the Michigan one. There's the North Carolina one. We got them all, and we're ready to rock here tonight. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. First Super Chat Eagle 1, back on the mainland, traveling across PA to Ohio. Let's run this. We are less than 10 minutes away from getting started in round 2. Couple of rules here. Round 2, 7 minutes in between each pick. Round 3, 5 minutes in between each pick. So it's going to be a little bit faster. We're going to try to get as best coverage as we possibly can. Let's go ahead and start with the draft order. You see it going through the bottom of your screen right now. The Buffalo Bills had traded out of the first round, and they sit there at 33, followed by the Patriots, Cardinals at 35, Commanders at 36, Chargers 37, Titans 38, Panthers will get their first pick of this year's draft. Well, second, because they did pick at the end of this past round, And then the Commanders to round out 40. You see the rest of them scrolling across the ticker. As Josh mentioned, Philadelphia's at 50, and they are at 53. Right now, though, Josh, let's go ahead and take a look at ESPN's best available players, and there are some pretty darn good ones, and the first of which, his name is Cooper DeJean.
That is a...
Go for it.
He's kind of a given. Okay, I didn't know if there's a pause there throwing it up. Okay, yeah. So that's a given. Yeah, I mean, I see Daniel Jeremiah, different scouts, everybody talking about it today. We thought you might have to trade up for a Cooper DeJean, and the fact that he's still sitting there on the board is kind of shocking because, you know, even later towards the end of last night, it goes the high versatility that he brings, the weapon that he is. There's lots of reasons to like Cooper DeJean, but you know, hey, some team surely is going to get him very early in the second round because of the weapon, the athleticism there. Team's been talking about it for a long time. Is it the Eagles? Is Howie Roseman going to try to trade up so early to get that hybrid safety in Fangio's defense? We'll see, but he's definitely a weapon.
I'd be very, very surprised if they're able to go up and get him. I think Cooper DeJean's going to be gone in the first 1 to 3 picks here. I mean, Buffalo, for instance, could be someone that takes Cooper DeJean. But when you talk about the Buffalo Bills, you also talk about a receiver, and I think we both agree the best one on the board right now is Quinyon Mitchell. Some say a little bit of injury concerns here, Josh. Some say he was overshadowed by Xavier Worthy, but Mitchell's another one of these players who's probably going to go pretty darn high here in round 2.
He absolutely will and should, and it's shocking because I made the case in the argument of even last night of why are some of these other receivers going, or why would you not take an Quinyon Mitchell? You know, if you're the Chargers, I think it makes all the sense in the world. Whenever you can get him, you grab Quinyon Mitchell if you can, because you got Joe Alt. You know, it seems like you do need to have more weapons naturally because of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and things like that. But Mitchell can be that complete package receiver. You see all the highlights, his ability on the field. I think it makes too much sense, especially a bigger receiver like Quinyon Mitchell. Go get your guy for the Chargers. I'm with you. He's got to be off the board in a couple picks. There's no way he lasts longer than that.
Very curious exactly where they go is Kool-Aid McKinstry, the cornerback from Alabama, Josh. This is somebody who, I mean, I think we all thought was going to be a first-round draft pick. He falls a little bit, but he won't have to wait long. I'd seen some people say Philly could double dip on corner, like true outside corner, and get McKinstry. I don't think it makes sense, but listen, when I heard Nick Saban talk about this guy being almost more pro-ready than Tyrion Arnold. His words, not mine, last night. I'm pretty excited to see where he goes early in this draft.
Yeah, hearing his comments on it, you're right. I was listening back to the analysis and everything, and it's awesome because you mentioned Nick Saban and him also talking about Quinyon Mitchell and hey, we wanted to get him out of the transfer portal, come to Bama. So for the questions of like, hey, he didn't play SEC level talent. If Nick Saban says it, that's good enough for me. But yes, to your point, I mean, if you could double dip, and all of a sudden you're telling me the next up-and-coming cornerback play is going to be Kool-Aid McKinstry and a Quinyon Mitchell in Philly, that would be absolutely ridiculous. Still, though, I mean, to the effect of like how much you have to trade up, give up draft capital, everything, it feels unrealistic. But I have seen those same comments as well. It's like, does Howie, decide, let's actually completely overhaul this thing? Fangio gets 2 corners, dominant guys. Bradbury's for sure gone. He's most likely, going to be on the move anyway. But that would be a massive move for Howie to go that route.
Let's get to some super chats here. If you've not hit the thumbs up, we're approaching 1,000 people joining us already. Get the show going here. We only had 123 likes. Give the show a thumbs up. Andrew Trivel, good morning from Korea. Josh and Thomas, go Birds. Happy draft weekend. What an offseason so far. The re-signing of both Smith and Brown shows we learned after Jackson and Macklin. Yes, feels like many years ago, but we did learn after Jackson and Macklin. And boy, that was very much overshadowed. We both talked about it in our shows today, recapping round 1, but I mean, come on. A.J. Brown, officially a Philadelphia Eagle for a lot longer. I know there were some media people in Philadelphia not happy about this because the trade rumors die, but we're all pretty pumped to get him in the building for the long term. And right now, to be the highest paid receiver in the National Football League. Darian Mitchell drops a 5. He says, how do y'all feel about people having concerns how Mitchell being NFL ready because he didn't play against elite talent at Toledo? That does not seem like a problem at all. If you go back and watch his Senior Bowl tape, Josh, and I'll even go ahead and throw up the Quinyon Mitchell highlights. I mean, the Senior Bowl tape from Quinyon Mitchell is something that basically got him drafted. I mean, it was really a big-time reason why he was taken so darn high in this draft because he was absolutely balling out pretty much the entire time over there at the Senior Bowl. Even though he did play well at the Senior Bowl, what did he have? 40 straight starts at Toledo. He didn't cause a single penalty this past season. And at times, I saw the tape back in 2022, he matched up against Marvin Harrison Jr. when Toledo played Ohio State. Did a pretty darn good job as well.
He did. To your point, I mean, I don't know who else you want to match him up with and say, can he play against that talent? Now, I understand and appreciate Darren's question because, yes, it's not the day in, day out that the SEC challenge is for sure. But, I mean, like I alluded to earlier, like you're also saying, Nick Saban, this was his target. This is who he would have preferred to come to Bama. That's what he was wanting for his defense, and that tells you a lot. You also talk about the Senior Bowl, but then Howie Roseman mentioned it in his press conference the other day or yesterday of saying like, hey, this is a guy that we see, especially for this scheme fit, makes all the sense in the world. He plays off-ball coverage. He plays in a quarter system, which is what a lot of defenses, especially Fangio's system, plays. So you get this guy that fits perfectly in the scheme, and then he gets to learn behind Darius Slay, who made the awesome comment saying like, hey, I hope he's coming for my job. I'm going to get him ready. That's my job to get him ready to replace me. So it's a win-win in so many different areas. I'm still in complete shock, honestly, that he's on this team.
He's obviously in Philadelphia. It was a nice picture of him being en route to Philadelphia a couple of hours ago. He's there. We'll probably have his press conference on our shows tomorrow, also recapping nights 2 and 3 of the draft. The super chats are pouring in. The people are pouring in. We're almost to 1,000 between both shows. Get the show a thumbs up. It helps other people find it. Let's go ahead and throw up, I think it's Carvard says, who should we be our underrated target for the second round, Josh? Josh, you got an underrated target for round 2? Because we know the big names. I'll give you one. I don't think he's going to be an Eagle, but I absolutely love him. Keon Coleman, the wide receiver from FSU, I thought at times he was one of the best receivers in all of college football. He slides a little bit. I think the Jordan Travis factor, the injury, what happened at FSU the end of the season played a factor in that. The Eagles were rumored to want receiver. I think that's died since the A.J. Brown extension. But if they still want one, Keon Coleman in this offense would be pretty crazy.
That would be I like that. I like that pick, honestly. It's kind of an underrated sleeper of a pick of sorts. I mean, a lot of people know the game like you're talking about, but I don't know. I kind of go back and forth of it doesn't feel. I mean, corners changed because previously, you know what to say, Max Melton was brought in for a visit. Andrew Phillips of Kentucky was brought in for a visit. There's lots of corners, but I think that probably, it could be wrong. Maybe how he ends up getting it with 50 or 53 because he got 2 picks there. It seems like you're going to go a different route. And so to that effect, I mean, I would probably lean towards you do need to bolster the pass rush. And even though, I mean, Nick Sirianni basically admitted we made a bad mistake in getting rid of Christian Ellis, you could get another Ellis. You could get his Jonah Ellis from Utah. I mean, the game that he presents and his 3-cone shuttle, I mean, like one of the best in history for an edge rusher. I mean, crazy time, crazy agility. Anthony DeBona kind of hyped him up is what got me focused on watching him to begin with. But I'd say that's a name that I haven't heard a whole lot about the Eagles. Yes, there's some interest or some kind of taking a look at him, but nothing crazy. So perhaps you throw him out there as an underrated, somewhat off the radar type of guy. And if he falls the right way, then who knows? Maybe all of a sudden we'll look at it. And I would think that'd be a late round or almost even early 3rd round scenario, but he'd be a good guy to throw out there.
Throw up Chris Ingram's 100 bomb. He didn't even say anything. He just threw up a 100 bomb, Josh. We're getting started early with the Giants Super Chats. Leader in the clubhouse right now in terms of the biggest one tonight. We had some big ones last night. Chris, we appreciate it. Justin, realistically speaking, what could the Eagles get if they traded down from 50 or 53? My assumption is there would be a 3rd-round draft pick involved. You would probably come back to the 3rd round, and you would probably pick up a 5th or a 6th to go with that if that calculation's correct. Do you agree with that assessment, Josh?
I do, yes. And I was trying to look as well because we talked about like last night, it made a whole lot of sense with Seattle, right? Because they're at 16. They don't have a 2nd round pick. They do have a 3rd. So I'm almost wondering, is there a potential world where you trade your 2nd round and get back into their 3rd, but you acquire a couple other selections, right? Like, could you see maybe getting even a 4th or try to get a 5th or even possibly next year? I don't know what Howie Roseman will do in that side, but you've got to imagine Seattle is going to want to trade up in the 2nd round, especially, I mean, you went through the laundry list of great available talent that somehow slipped to the 2nd round. So I can't imagine Seattle's going to go, yeah, we'll just sit tight and wait until 81 to pick. So it'll be interesting, but I would just say, because Seattle and Philly have had conversations beforehand about that pick to begin with in the 1st round, it would only seem to reason that you make another call and go, hey, by the way, can we make this thing happen now for the 2nd? So that would be my team to keep an eye on as far as a trade back.
All right, we're definitely going to be doing that. Big names are showing Jackson Powers-Johnson, the Oregon center, potentially a guard option for Philadelphia. He has been heavily rumored as a early pick here. I think it's Jerzon Newton is how you say his first name. The Illinois defensive tackle will go off the board here pretty soon as well. How about Jerry Rice's son, Brendan Rice, the USC wide receiver? We got some highlights from him. Looks like Jerry's at his house, or someone's house in Chandler, Arizona. They're showing him on the broadcast. A lot of big names here in round 2 and a lot of great players. We'll talk more about that in a second. First, James Carver with a 10. He says, Kamari Lassiter, UGA slot corner, would ensure Eagles in case Maddox doesn't last this year. I see how he's trading back for Majid Temple, a local guy from middle linebacker, not taking Cooper or Colson out of the University of Michigan. Those are some interesting takes. We'll see if that happens, Josh.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't want that to happen. Appreciate the support, James, but I mean, everybody knows by this point, we've said it a million different times. I want Edgerrin Cooper to happen. If it does not, Junior Colson naturally is that next one. So maybe he falls a little bit further and you could get him in a trade back scenario. But I don't know. I've already gotten my hopes just totally fulfilled and like surpassed to the extreme because of Quinyon Mitchell at 22. And I was like, are they even going to take corner? And that the fact that the Eagles do, I'm kind of like, if we don't get linebacker, I'll be all right. Like if we don't get early linebacker and get Edgerrin Cooper, I'm going to be okay because we got Quinyon Mitchell. But how amazing and ridiculous will this draft be if all of a sudden we're saying, oh my gosh, the Eagles did it, whether it's a trade up or magically somehow Edgerrin Cooper has fallen so far that at 50 he goes to the Eagles. That'd just be nuts. But that's why we love the draft, because who could have predicted 14 straight offensive players last night? And this tonight will be crazy. There'll be something that'll happen. We'll go, what in the world? That's ridiculous.
We're about to put the Buffalo Bills on the clock. That's happening very soon here. We're sneaking a Donovan Seward $2 super chat. Back in here, fellas. What's up? We welcome everybody who was watching last night. If you are new,
let's go.
Our promise to you is highlights, analysis, best graphics, and the picks before everybody else. We are way ahead of ESPN. We were yesterday. I'll be again today. And so if you want to know first, this is the place to go ahead and hang out and do it. Eagle 1, Sheldon Brown, Lito Shepard, Weapon X, Dawkin. That Greats double up, please. The Greats double up, please. It's a possibility tonight. I do want to mention somebody. We're going to get his highlights going here in just 1 second as well, Josh. Somebody that I think we won't see during round 2. It would be very crazy to see him going round 2, but it's somebody we talked about a lot, and that's Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I think there was a time, Josh, when Trotter Jr. was going to be a second-round draft pick very early in this process. That seems to have changed a little bit here. Some people are saying he might not even make it tonight at all, round 2 or round 3. You think he goes off the board on Friday night?
I don't know. I've gone back and forth, honestly, because to your point, it has changed drastically. Beforehand, several weeks ago, or at least a month ago, I would have said, no doubt, he definitely does. But it's weird. It depends on whose mock draft you take a look at, big board, everything there, because he's anywhere from like 70 to 130. I mean, it's the most ridiculous range that you talk about for a player. I like the pedigree. Everyone likes the pedigree. It'd be awesome to see Trotter Jr. in Midnight Green again. There's lots to like. The size factor, and you can also do the comparison. I know he's not the Kobe Dean, but there's similarities in size, and so I think naturally that's where you lean towards, like, could you get a guy like an Edwin Cooper or a Junior Colson? But again, I would also say that if they get Jeremiah Trotter Jr., I don't think that very many people, certainly I won't be in this boat of saying, oh, that's a terrible pick. I would just prefer some other players over that.
Fair. Very fair.
If I had to guess, I would say he does go tonight. It's just, I would say late third round. If I got to put money on it, got to make a prediction, I'm going to say late third round.
Ryan says we will see Josh's addiction cured tonight. Is that your Edwin Cooper addiction?
Yes.
Is that what that is?
That is.
There you go.
That is.
I think it's going to be cured.
Hopefully it's cured by way of, I guess, taking the substance.
There you go. Yeah. I don't know if that normally cures it, but sure.
I don't know. There's no more. So either way, it will happen.
LAK, will Josh Davis Juju strikes again? Let's hope so. We'll see what happens. And then Dirty D, show was great last night. Love all the hard work y'all put into this. We appreciate that. We obviously have a lot more graphics that are going to go on the screen once the Bills officially go on the clock. They are not officially on the clock yet, and so we kind of want to make sure that we are right on time as we try and match things up for you guys who are watching at home. If you don't hit the red subscribe button, now's your chance. If you don't hit the thumbs up button, we're at 322. Just a reminder, you see down below the picks that are scrolling across your screen, goes through the second round with the 49ers and the Chiefs rounding it up with 63 and 64, and then in round 3, Philly will not have a pick as of now. Here's your draft order restarting. Buffalo 33, New England 34, the Patriots 35, Commanders 36, Chargers there at 37, Titans at 38, and then, of course, to round out 39 and 40, the Carolina Panthers, who just got their wide receiver Xavier Legette at the bottom of round 1, and the Washington Commanders again there at 40. Philly has 50 and 53, and we are less than 10 seconds away from the commissioner walking out on stage and officially putting the Buffalo Bills back on the clock. They were on the clock twice last night, and both times they did not take a pick. And the Buffalo Bills are going to have their first shot this evening. And some people think it's Cooper DeJean. Some say Adonai Mitchell. Some say Keon Coleman. There's a lot of options for Philadelphia.
Let's go, baby.
Sorry,
Friday night hangout. We are here. NFL draft, night 2. Insanity. Buffalo, to your point. I mean, they made the NFL, every team in the NFL's life worse, except for the Chiefs. I don't know what trade they were doing on that side. I should bring up, while we're watching the commissioner officially make the announcement, that was a fantastic move. I think it got, because it was towards the very late part of the draft and hyped with the Quinyon Mitchell, objectively speaking, it was a very good move on Carolina's part to get, if they wanted the receiver. I think it's a little early for Legette, but I actually heard Bill Belichick's analysis afterward, talking with Pat McAfee. It's like you get that 5th-year option, and I totally didn't even think about that, but you barely have to move up, and you get the 5th-year option on a receiver that you want for Bryce Young. So good move for them. I don't have a clue what Buffalo is and was thinking, but they're right about to be on the clock. So we'll see.
Jeremy Atkins says, y'all got your Gatorade bottles today? No, I don't, Jeremy, but I took a pee right before we went live, like 3 seconds before. So just so we're clear, I'm empty for now. We'll see how long it lasts.
I've got a weak bladder, so I won't last. We'll it'll be a couple times maybe of having to make a run, but I did have the thought. I'm just an amateur streamer, as people have said, so I'm perfectly fine with that. There's no way it's going under the desk.
Darian Mitchell throwing up a 5. Think we'll trade up to get Cooper. How do you feel about Pearsall going to the 49ers? I've seen a lot of people really ripping that pick, Josh, in terms of, a receiver. What I do think is going to happen, and we got highlights for this, I think you're going to see a trade, and the rumor is, Josh, that Deebo Samuel could be shipped very early here in round 2. Would you rather see Deebo or Brandon Ayuk leave San Francisco, or would you be more surprised if one or the other? What's your take here on the receivers in San Francisco after they took one late in round 1?
If you had asked me this like 2 days ago, I would say I'd be shocked if it was Deebo Samuel. But yeah, I mean, to the question that Darren was asking, how do I feel about the Pearsall to the 49ers? I like Ricky Pearsall. I think he's an elite prospect. I think that he comes with a very ready-made game for the NFL. And the fact that you draft him feels a lot more of a replacement for a Deebo Samuel with his skill set, not a Brandon Ayuk. And so I would say that move kind of signifies, to your point, that we're going to get a Deebo Samuel movement, which is going to be shocking if you don't see him in the 49ers red. So we'll see where that turns out. But I was thinking it was going to be a foregone conclusion. We're talking about Brandon Ayuk going somewhere, and they could do an about face and actually see Deebo somewhere else.
Right now, they are bringing up really the idea, and I heard this earlier today as well, that because Buffalo traded back, it gave Buffalo an extra day, essentially, to try to work out a trade for Deebo Samuel. And so they don't get Xavier Worthy, but they could easily get a Deebo Samuel, and that would make some sense as well. So we're going to keep an eye on the trades tonight. Both receivers for San Francisco are two that I think really could be moved, one or the other, especially early on, and that's going to be something to definitely keep an eye on right now. We are waiting for them to put the Buffalo Bills on the clock. They have not yet. They brought out not the entire, but a very large contingent of Michigan football players holding their national championship trophy, and they're all, doing their Detroit thing to try to make sure the Detroit crowd, which is still in the probably hundreds of thousands, it looks like, at the stage center right now. And so when they put the Buffalo Bills on the clock, then we can go ahead and put the Buffalo Bills on the clock as well. I think he's actually about to do it.
Shout out to my guy Justin. I'm sure he loved that. Big Michigan fan. I'm sure he loved seeing that. By the way, it still didn't change the fact that Roger Goodell's getting booed as soon as they come off the stage. So you got to love that.
The Buffalo Bills are officially on the clock right now. And I got to see if I can figure out our clock, because our clock is set to round 1. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to fix that yet, but I'm going to work on that in terms of our round 1 clock. But just know the Buffalo Bills are on the clock with about 7 minutes to go. And so we are going to work on that to see if I can get that fixed. But as you see down below, your best availables are starting to roll across according to ESPN. Cooper DeJean is number 1. The defensive tackle from Illinois, Jerzon Newton, is up there as well. Kool-Aid McKinstry. Adonai Mitchell is someone to keep an eye on. I think here, how about Ladd McConkey, Josh? Thought you could sneak into the bottom of round 1. He did not. You have Ennis Rackstraw, the pass rusher, Keon Coleman, obviously the wide receiver, and a whole list of really good players, Marshawn Nealon included, rolling across your screen at the bottom right now. And there's Edgerrin Cooper. He's going by. There goes Edgerrin Cooper. Keep an eye on him as he moves across.
Keep that name there as long as possible. Do not take that off the board. We don't want to see that one go yet.
Buffalo Bills are officially on the clock. Welcome to night 2 of the NFL Draft. We're going to see how long this takes, as they're showing us Ladd McConkey right now in Chatsworth, Georgia, not far from where I am at in Atlanta, Georgia. And we're going to see how long it takes for them to find a really good slot receiver. I love Ladd McConkey. I think he would go nuts if he went to Philadelphia. But, again, we have bigger fish to fry. Still, though, a lot of fun receivers on the board here on night 2, and a lot of fun offensive linemen as well.
Yes, very true. There's bigger fish to fry and other needs on that side. But, you can't cross it off the list of possibilities for Howie Roseman. If he has a guy that he likes that somehow slips or falls, and all of a sudden you don't have to trade up, you just get the best player available. It would be wild, not going to lie. It'd be wild to draft a receiver, especially with the extension of A.J. Brown. You already had Devontae Smith locked up, but you still need and want a wide receiver 3, especially with Kellen Moore's offense. So, I don't know. We'll see where that one ends up. I'm curious, to your point, Buffalo had a lot of extra time to work out a trade. Naturally, you don't just rush the pick in there, but you'd have to imagine they already have their mind made up because they had so much time. They're not all of a sudden getting on the clock and go, gosh, we still don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah. So,
I
mean, you would
think
think.
You
would think.
If you draft a receiver, it has to be Adonai Mitchell. For me, it's like you pair him up with Josh Allen. It's a seamless fit. It's going to be perfect. You love all the potential. The only other thing is a trade.
You go ahead and keep rolling. I'm going to keep working on the timer right now. So just an FYI, I'm going to try to get this timer rocking and rolling. We'll see if I can figure it out. It's going to be interesting. But I'm trying to make it so it's about 7 minutes, and we'll see if we get that. But the Bills remain on the clock right now. So with that being said,
cool. Yep.
Keep an eye on what's going on here.
Sounds good. Yep, we can do that. Shout out to Dirty D, says at Augusta, Georgia. There you go.
There you go.
Really close. Heck yeah.
Hanging out at the old Masters, huh?
Oh yeah.
Maybe.
I got to get there one day. One of these days.
One day.
Hopefully.
We will
Anthony
go one
Brown,
day.
appreciate the 20 bomb, dude. Says, what do you guys think about Kingsley? I can't even ever say that his name is Suamaitai, I think.
It's pretty close.
Suamaitai.
It's like Halapoulivaati Vaitai. It's close, right? That's not bad.
I think so. I don't know. That's what I go with. So out of BYU, second for the Eagles. That's a possibility. I mean, I do think the more that, you got your corner, we like the sexy skill players, the picks and all that, but it's like you got to go with, I would think, you got to go O-line. So if he's available, I mean, I'm totally on board with that. I think that, you talk about the type of prospects that Jeff Stoutland likes and that he prefers. You want the athletes, you want the guys who are, I don't know, just have that nastiness to him. Just the X factor in terms of an offensive lineman. I think Kingsley Suamaitai is one of those guys. So I would love the pick, especially if you don't have a scenario kind of like how he said, you take a look at your big board, you have some names that you ideally want, and if it doesn't fall your way, then you kind of sit tight, or if there's enough players remaining that are still in that caliber, you don't have to trade up and you make it happen. I would imagine that offensive tackle, and Kingsley being one of those, is towards the top of that board. So I think it just depends on where he falls and how closely it ends up getting back to 50, but wouldn't mind it. Wouldn't hate that.
All right, we have our first pick. The pick is officially in for the Buffalo Bills. That puts the New England Patriots on the clock. And with the first pick in round 2, the Buffalo Bills are going to go wide receiver. And it is going to be Keon Coleman, the superstar, I think, wide receiver out of FSU. I'm a big Keon Coleman fan, Josh. My roommate, former roommate, I should say, went to FSU. We watched a lot of FSU games this past season, and this guy pops off the screen. He has the size, the speed, and the catch radius. Is he the next Stephon Diggs for the Buffalo Bills? I don't know, but is he going to be at least be an upgrade over not having Stephon Diggs? I think that's absolutely a big-time yes. This is a very, very good pick by the Buffalo Bills. I like Keon Coleman.
I like it too. You mentioned it at the top. Hey, potential pick, a guy that could be an X factor, 6'4", 215. The thing that you really have to love about Coleman is his physicality. He's not afraid to mix it up with a corner. In fact, he kind of prefers that type of play style. He wants to get and be able to use his size, especially with corners who are a little bit lacking in the size. The only maybe potential knock that I've seen a couple different scouts grades give him is the fact that he can lack to separate. And at the NFL, we all know separation is a very important part of the wide receiver game. So if that limits him, it could cause some problems. But overall, I agree. It's a great pick. Makes a lot of sense for Buffalo. They had to get the receiver. So you go here. I might have chosen Adonai Mitchell personally, but
there you go.
Can't knock it too much. He's still a playmaker.
All right, ESPN has just announced the Buffalo Bill pick, and so the New England Patriots are officially on the clock. We're going to keep an eye on that, but if you're just joining us, the Buffalo Bills have made the first selection of night 2, and the picks are going to come a lot faster. We got a lot of highlights. We don't have all the highlights. There are a lot of potential players that we didn't think would go early in round 1 or 2, but I think this is a good pickup by the Buffalo Bills as we get settled in here for what should be a fun and fast-paced evening, and Keon Coleman gets started with the round 2 selection. Bills fans are probably going to be pretty happy.
As they should.
All right, as they should. That puts the New England Patriots back on the clock. We, of course, remember yesterday, the New England Patriots, they went with their gut, and I think that's a fair way to go ahead and say it, as they stayed at number 3 despite getting trade offers we know for a fact from the New York Football Giants, and they took Drake May. And as you mentioned multiple times last night, Josh, you think Drake May could be the best quarterback in this draft. I think New England, 24 hours later, has got to feel pretty darn good about getting the quarterback. Now in round 2, they got to get just other people around him because that roster is pretty devoid of talent.
Yes, go help him out, whether it's, you could go O-line here, but I mean, again, you talk about like the value in the position at this, it would make a whole lot of sense to me because he's still available, and I would have preferred to see Buffalo. If I'm taking it, I'd take Adonai Mitchell. Like I said, you got to take it. Mitchell, to me, is a first-round talent. You want to pair him up with Drake May, make his life easier. Go get him a guy. That pairing could be dominant. You want to have that, duo really for wide receiver quarterback game anyway. But that one makes a whole lot of sense. I agree, though. There's lots of potential with Drake May. You got to surround him with talent. You still also need to get an O-lineman. and bolster the protection, because he's going to need that. If he can't stay up, it doesn't matter what offensive weapons you get him. But I would
All
still
right.
probably err towards the side receiver.
We have a trade. First trade of round 2 Friday night is officially happening. The Los Angeles Chargers are on the
There
clock.
it is.
They have moved up here, Josh. Who do we think it's for?
It's Adonai Mitchell. No question in my mind. I will
I think you're
call
right.
it right now. It is going to be Adonai Mitchell. You get a talent for Justin Herbert to throw to. Brett Coleman actually, he called this earlier as well, but he was saying Chargers are going to get Adonai Mitchell if he falls to them. I don't think they want to wait. You trade up, go get Mitchell.
All right. The pick is officially in. Let's go ahead and get that up on my screen as well here. So we know that the pick is in. Let's confirm and make sure that we know who it is, and then we'll get to the actual selection as we are going here. I don't have confirmation on who this is yet. I know the Charger pick is officially in. Oh, okay. It's not exactly who you thought it was. Let's get to the pick. All right, the pick is officially in. That means that the Cardinals are now going to go ahead and be on the clock. And Josh, it's a wide receiver, and it's one that you and I think both of us really like. It's Ladd McConkey. And I think the Senior Bowl, it's hard to take highlights just from the Senior Bowl and try and convince you that he was good, because he was really good at Georgia, but he was working people at the Senior Bowl. When I was looking at these highlights earlier today, Josh, he's carving up everybody with the route running.
You're right. That's where he beats everyone. In terms of whether you want to press him, if you're going to have play an off coverage, his route running ability, his quickness, his acceleration, he doesn't have necessarily the long end speed or kind of the top end speed that you see from some other prospects, but he gets open, and that's really all that matters. We talk about separation. You're going to help out Justin Herbert. I still will say Adonai Mitchell was a given. That seems obvious. That's where I would have gone. 6 foot, 185. I don't know if I'd trade to get a guy like that. I know he could be a difference maker. He's going to, I'm sure, have a good career, but I would still err on the side of take Adonai Mitchell here.
All right. Well, we are cleaning up a couple.